Me to do,
I'm sorry, can you say that again, Nadia?
would you like me to do some breath work after that one at the beginning, prior to starting to talk?
I think so, if you don't mind. But let me introduce you first. Okay. And thank you so much for being here. I know it's a pain with the time zone changes.
No,
Okay.
my pleasure.
Okay, everyone. Next is an amazing speaker. Um, she has got so much talent and gifts to offer us today. Nadia Davis. Her title of her talk today is called Home is Within You, which is also the title of her book. Going to show that now. Um, I don't know if you guys can see it well or not. Nadia, do you have a copy too to show at some point? Yeah, you have to hold it right to you for people to see it. Yeah. Okay. I read this book. It is very well written and an awesome resource for trauma survivors. Okay, but let me introduce her properly. Nadia Davis is a mom, attorney, Kundalini yoga teacher. I always stumble on that word. Podcast host, podcast host of Home is Within You, transforming shame into power. She's a former elected official and author of Home is Within You, a memoir of recovery and redemption. Nadia is a survivor, an advocate against public shaming of struggle, and the recipient of many awards. So, without further ado, we'll put her gifts and her links in the chat, or Genevieve will, I should say. But Nadia, thank you so much for being here. Please take it away.
Thank you. And let's all close our eyes and move a little bit on our sitting bones. Anytime we hear another story, it brings up a lot within ourselves. And there's always this space that I call home. And the bridge is the breath. So let's just take a few moments on your own and breathe in deeply through your nose, slowly, until the point that you can hold it at the top. Holding for a few moments. You are safe right where you are right now in this body and mind. And exhale audibly. So, and do that a few more times. What I wish I had known when I was younger was that I would always be able to come to this space, no matter what. That I could always come to a space that I call now a home within me. I think the most unrecognized reality of human existence and of trauma survivors is the spiritual attacks that we go through, that our mind puts us through, that the world and others create, and what ultimately becomes a sense of separation. The most vehement tool, weapon in all of that, I believe is shame. This secret belief that we are that we are flawed. Where does that come from? And how can we recognize when our mind brings those thoughts up so that we can then hold our little girl and say, it's okay, and hold her enough that her soul can speak. My mother is 88 years old and she has several diagnoses. And about every other day, she shares how she doesn't want to live anymore. Now, what brings somebody at the end of their life to the point they are so afraid to be alone? With all the managing of what that triggers in me when I hear that, I would not be able to walk through that without having the sense of a home within me. And so, if there's anything that I can do in my life as a mother, the most important thing is to teach my children how to feel safe and calm within themselves, because I learned how to do that within myself. I know that when I am 88 years old, health failing, that I won't be afraid to be alone because I will know how my mind is working to separate me. And this is where we can build what I call spiritual advocacy. We become spiritual advocates. I'm not talking about God. I'm not talking about religious. I'm talking about our soul, our intuition, our higher knowing. The little girl in us is asking us to do that. She is the bridge. I remember the first time I was at Dee's house, a woman's trauma and addiction treatment center. The first time my therapist, who's still my therapist today, said to me, she said, Nadia, you are whole, divine, complete, and infinite being. It hurt to hear her say that. It almost made me angry because here I had been since childhood, this little girl that thought I was a dirty little brown girl based on things that happened to me, that had fought so hard in all the survivalist ways that I had. My body violated, my emotionally, mentally, in every single way. How is this woman telling me that my true self was whole, divine, complete? I couldn't even hear the concept. And I learned slowly but surely since then that it wasn't that I had to believe it in the beginning. I just had to ponder on it and then see how my mind was creating thoughts that were fear and judgment based, that come up all the time, every day, yet that those thoughts were not me. And slowly but surely, I was able to flip it where when those thoughts come up today, whether in PTSD triggers and I'm disassociated, or in the mode I come into speaking this morning and I am afraid. I'm afraid I won't remember everything. Those are fears, those are judgments, and that comes from my survivalist mind. Yet I know I can say, okay, mind, you're merely trying to help me survive, but I am not you. You are not me. And I am a whole divine, infinite being that was made from and is love and a core innocence. Now, it was a 7-year journey to get there, and many different modalities came in. But anywhere where anyone is at on their recovery journey, it can be tapped into just as we did with our breath right when we started. I was the youngest of 7 children. Yes, 7 in a 9-year span. My father of Native American and Hispanic heritage, my mother, immigrant who grew up during the war in Germany. And when I shared that story about my mother today, no one ever taught her. As a war survivor, no one ever taught her that there was a place within. And she became a perfectionist, a workaholic. And that was her survival skill. A beautiful woman who didn't speak an ounce of English when she came here, a seamstress who had left an abusive marriage. When my father laid eyes on her at a Belisle's at a little cafe after he played with his jazz band, he said, I'm going to marry that woman. Now here he was, an orphan field worker who didn't speak an ounce of English when he started school, was put in an all-white classroom, all Anglo classroom because his last name is Davis. They picked him up by his shirt, said, you don't belong in this class. You belong down the hall with all the brown and black children, because they were testing children and wrongfully diagnosing them as mentally retarded. They were only testing them in English. I would fail a Vietnamese test if I were to be given one today. So my father, raised by his Navajo grandmother, on his father's side, Davis brought in a Hashamen. A Hashamen is Southern California native, very tall, dark, native-looking eyes. He walked down that hallway at the age of 9 and said to himself, this isn't going to stop me. Somewhere in him, that survivalist mind, it was implanted in him so early. Working in the fields as a kid every day, he said, I'm going to get out of this hole. So many different scenarios where he just stood up and said, I'm going to get out of this ambiance. Not that I want to leave it, but out of the mindset. And that was a good part of his survivalist mind. That was a good part of us. So in my father, on the day he met my mother, he had the dream of becoming the first Spanish-speaking attorney, and he became that. He, combined with my mother, modeled the grin and bear it mode, the save the world mode. And together, they raised me. Now, as a little girl, we don't understand these things. And so when bad things started to happen to me, beginning at the age of 4 or 5, the doctor's molestation in a room, combined with children telling me to wash my face due to a birthmark and my brown skin, I grew up with an understanding that I was a dirty little brown girl. And my concept of the entire world and relating to the world was based on where I would go, was in a closet where I would hide. I didn't understand anything going on around me. I didn't know how to put my feelings into words, and I felt that they made me flawed, that I was defective. And therein lay the platform of not only my relationship to everybody in the world, how I survived in the world, and this core belief, I am abandoned, alone, I am separate, and I am flawed. Growing up with this, not knowing my mind's survivalist in nature, I became, my mission was to save the world. From an early age on, from canned food drives, from establishing international in high school, the basketball homecoming queen, spiritual wars within my family. I strove to numb my feelings by controlling my eating. I was defective if I had any fears. I Everything, all my friends around me seemed to have it right. They seemed to be social. They were drinking, and something in me made me feel flawed. I have journal entries, some of which are in the book, that talk about, you know, I would pray to a God that was separate from me to help and save my peers and their suffering. I had this belief that what made me worthwhile to, what made my life worthwhile was that I had to save people. That carried me through college. And I'll never forget the day I presented an acceptance letter to UCLA in front of my father, and we came up with a plan. I was the first to follow in his footsteps and go to UCLA, a sociology major, juveniles and juvenile crime and justice reform minor. And I did a number of internships. And when I experienced an extremely violent rape in college, it reaffirmed all those core beliefs. You are just a body. You are these thoughts. You are abandoned, alone, and separated. And therein, my mind went on high drive even more. It's unstoppable how much our survivalist mind can go. And so in this fear of abandonment, this belief I was separate from everyone and a higher power, I became an attorney. A few more abusive relationships landed where I felt that I had to save the person. Throughout that entire time, I was hurting so bad inside. The hole within me was so deep, but I did not know that my mind was doing this. I merely was using my mind to fight it. And it worked for a while. Awards, accolades, I became a local school board member. I freed a wrongfully convicted kid. And even prior to that, I was in a near-death car accident. 22 broken bones, a punctured lung, my brain bleeding. I had an experience that proved to me that I can say is the only truth that matters. Your truth is in this infinite truth, where your story, your pain, everything that you have wanted people to know, to be acknowledged, that is valid, that is you, is held in an infinite truth and space where past, present, and future all combine. Time isn't linear, and it just is. Yet from that, another's breath was forced inside me, and I was put on life support. The moment I became conscious about a month later, what happened? The survivalist mind. I have to still free this wrongfully convicted kid. I can't walk. but this kid is behind bars and you need to free him, literally unable to walk in a hospital bed. That is the power of the survivalist mind. That was my worth. That was how I would receive love, save other people, do, be on the outside. An attorney, elected official, an up and comer, awards, accolades. Once I started walking in my suit and heels, I met my husband, my ex-husband. At the time, he was the state attorney general, and I walked up to him with a plea for the poor brown kids in Santa Ana. And within a month, having been given an illegal drug in that state of mind, I don't blame anyone for taking it, but in that state of mind, hurting, separate, I made the choice of taking a drug that then destroyed my life. Yet in that first try, I became pregnant. And therein again, my soul was calling me. I knew from the moment I found out I was pregnant that that child was meant to be. Having gone through it before and making a different choice, I knew with my oldest son that my father was speaking to me. Picked myself up, used my survivalist mind, was going to raise the child on my own, went through kind of a public image damage effort. All of this is in the book. My ex-husband asked me to marry him over the phone, and my life changed overnight, and I was further catapulted into the public eye. That little abandoned girl, that sense of worthiness with everything outside me only was magnified even more. My whole entire goal was to ensure that that house was exactly as it needed to be for him when he came back from work. Everything on the outside, once I exited the door, all eyes were on me. At least that is what it seemed like. At some point, the flashbacks from childhood, the chronic pain from the car accident got so bad that my drinking, had been sober for about 8 years and managing 8 years from drugs, and I managed with alcohol. I managed. Our life becomes unmanageable, as we say in the program, when practical things become unmanageable. Well, I believe it was when my emotions, when my flashbacks, when all of that became unmanageable, and they always were unmanageable. That powerlessness was always there because I didn't know how my mind worked. When I finally recognized that, I reached out for help. And unfortunately, when I reached out for help in the arms of Kaiser, I met a human being that fit right into the mold of where we all find ourselves at some point. That is separate from our true selves. That is so vulnerable to what became a dyadic abusive relationship, fitting right into this. I felt separate. I felt unworthy. My husband and I separated, and within a 2-month time period, my entire being and existence, my whole sense of reality was solely based on what that person had convinced me. I had no ability, I had no way of seeing a way out. As they began stalking, from two things happened. They began stalking me online, and they began planning blackmail, unbeknownst to me. In this state, they began taking personal images of us when intimate. When my instincts finally kicked in and my husband and I, we tried to get back together, under the roof, he wanted to hear nothing of what had happened. That person went to the press and created a whole entire story. It was not publicized. I had contact with that person again and trying to understand, believing in this dyadic abusive relationship that he was the only one that could stop the threats to expose me. In that moment, he violently assaulted me, and I barely lived. Thank God that the loving arms of a team of members of the Newark Police Department came in. They were the first ones to look me in the eye and say, "You matter." And from there on out, I had an inkling in me to that home that my truth mattered. Yet the public shaming from there on out was rampant. It became what became a human struggle, what was a personally abusive, mentally, physically, psychologically relationship was made a public scandal. And from there on out, it was a 10-year journey of treatment, jail, and hospitalizations. When I found myself in Dee's house, as I mentioned earlier, I had lost everything. The positions, I wanted out of the divorce. My husband never wanted to separate, but I couldn't see a way out. My children separated from me. And the woman said to me, "You are a whole, divine, and complete infinite being." Today, when I hear that, I believe it. And how did I get there? I started learning through trauma therapy that my mind created these core beliefs, these core wounds and beliefs that come up still today. But the nuts and bolts to self-love, to a spirituality, they had to happen somewhere for me and for many of us in the middle. I had to find safety and calm in my body with my mind. So I see here my mind. I can see when fears and judgments come up. I can see these core beliefs, core wounds come up, and I can listen. And then here on my left is always my soul. It is that soul intuition and soul learning. How do we get there? When we are in trauma therapy or on your own, we can begin to sit back. We can begin to look at what are our roles? What is our identity? How have we found purpose in life? As a mother, as a professional, as a partner, what are those? It is through those that the mind that is survivalist in nature will separate us, will separate you. And right here in the middle, in this home, grounded, we can watch those thoughts that come up. I don't know if I'm going to have everything ready for a Boy Scouts trip tonight. Excuse me. I'm hoping I'll be present for my children. Those are all based on fears. Those are all based on judgments, right? Right now, I don't know if I've shared a certain story. I don't know if I've been able to adequately express the magnitude of the beauty of a home within. That is based on my own judgment. Somewhere here, for some reason, I group it on the right, my mind. My mind will attach on to all these roles, all these identities, and create these thoughts, mostly that are fear and judgment based. Just watch, just do it for a day and you will see. Those thoughts will also separate me because right here in the middle, right here in the middle, I know I am a whole divine, infinite being also. So I can stay grounded in this body, in this mind, observing these thoughts. There is a whole worksheet and workshop on that aspect, that part, that I can send anybody that wants to work on that. But the key message is advocating for yourself during these times. Yes, we shut them off. Yes, we work through breath work, mantra, meditation to calm those, trauma therapy. We calm those to feel safe within ourselves, but we can also use them. We can use them as tools to advocate for closeness, for a bridge to our soul, to listen to that little girl more. So for me personally, the one that comes up all the time is this core fear of abandonment. From that basic fear, I can talk, I can connect through breath in this home within to that little girl. And I can hold her. I can listen to her, and we can walk through the practical daily life together. More and more, the more that I did that with a whole slew of different core beliefs and things I was able to identify and that you can identify. The more and more that I did that in a quiet space I created on my floor that is feet away from me, that you can too, with breath work, with mantra, with meditation, and the beauty of Kundalini yoga and its mind, body, spirit connection. The more and more in that first phase that took a while, the more I listened to that little girl, the more I created that sense of home within myself, the more my soul began to speak to me. It is in our relationship with ourself. Yes, the identity that we have made, the identity that we hold that gives us purpose and value, and also in the relationship we have with our soul. That determines every other relationship and human connection. That is the basis for it all in life. And that is why over the years, as I started to hear my soul, that knowing, that intuition, I heard my truth. And no matter what anybody, any paper, anyone interpreted, I knew my truth. I knew I had survived a heck of a lot. And I knew that the survivalist mind in me had done a really good job to a certain point. Yet that it also placed me in positions, in places, and in human contact with people that were predators, that loved that image I carried of myself. In that awareness, my truth, my story, the truth was there and nothing else mattered. That is what is in Home is Within You, a memoir of recovery and redemption. And in that space, my soul speaks. Our souls speak to us through our little girls. There is a power, there is an aura that comes to you with breath, with mantra, with meditation. There is an aura that comes that can be tapped into anytime, anywhere. It is not from something separate from us. It is not from God. It is our soul in this body with this mind right here in the center. Here is the grounding to observe my mind and also to listen to the soul. A home within you feels like freedom. It is the freedom after trauma that the summit is about. It is freedom in that here I can listen to healthy fear instincts now with others. I can protect myself better and not get in that running to standstill mode. The home within is free of attack thoughts. I can't shut off the fears and judgments, but right here, it's safe to listen to them. Right here is warmth, clarity, and an infinite space that in a good way reminds me right here and right now in this body, it is temporary, yet for a good reason. We have the opportunity as trauma survivors to get closer to our soul. In this body and in this mind, these triggers are also our soul calling. And the learnings and the bridge to the truth and the warmth and the love and light within us is also just right there in this body and in this mind as we do the best that we can every single day, managing every
Nadia,
day. Yes, that is an opportunity to get closer to the soul. And there is a home within. Thank you.
I had to stop you, girl, because it's 30 minutes over, but it was really powerful.
Thank
Really
you.
powerful. Thank you so much. I want to read a comment.
Here,
Nadia,
I thought it was 20, I was maybe at 20 minutes, so thank you.
when we're when we're telling our story, it can go really quickly. And this is from Charlene. I am listening to your amazing story. Thank you for sharing this. Listening to the little girl within is so powerful. The more people can connect with their inner child or inner self, the stronger we can become. The body mind connection is so very important. Namaste. And I ended up with an extra
Thank
copy
you
of
so much.
Nadia's book. She accidentally sent me two. So I have one I'm giving away, and it's going to Antoinette because she posed the first question to you. So Nadia, I'm going to ask you to respectfully be very brief in your answer, okay? Because we're 30 minutes behind. And some speakers later are going to get mad at me, maybe. So the
So,
question is,
yes.
An- Antoinette's question is, how do I comfort that little girl who is responsible for protecting me? Two sentences, Nadia.
You bring her into the home that you've always envisioned. The home making we do to our actual four walls around us is a home making we can do for that little girl within us. So what I do is I breathe deeply and I look at her. I see her in the closet I would hide in, and I bring her into my arms and I hold her, breathing deeply. I color the home within me for her. And I explain the home, warmth, light, and love to her. And the more and more that we do that, the more and more that you do that, you will have this sense she is safe in the home within you, and she will start talking to you.
That was beautiful. Charlene, do you want to read your comment? I'll give you an opportunity to do that.
Sure. Nadia, I just want to say that was just such an amazing story.
Oh,
And Karen, I feel it was time well invested to
I
hear the
appreciate
story.
that.
It really touched my heart and it brought shivers to me. So thank you for sharing that. It's very rare that people are so open about their experiences. I just appreciate that so much. So thank you, Nadia.
I would love to send you a copy of the book.
Well, I'm in Europe, Nadia. I don't know if you really want
That's
I
right,
would do
Nadia.
that. That's me. I would love to send you a copy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And
And
thank you for
I don't
sharing
know
your
if we're going to
story.
have everybody's contact info or emails. Um, but I would love to stay in touch, and I hope that you check out the podcast, Home is Within You.
Me too. Thank you.
Yes.
Please do. Thank you.
Nadia's information is in the chat. Will be also on when we send out the replays. Her information to reach out to her. Whatever she shared with us, we'll share with you all. And I can connect the two of you on email. I will send Antoinette's copy of the book. So Antoinette, send an email to healthrivedream@gmail.com with your address and we will get that to you. Genevieve, if you could put my email in the chat, that'd be great. And Nadia, you know I adore you. Um,
I adore you.
so thank you so much. You are such a gift to the
Oh,
world and to our group. So namaste to you. So,
namaste.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. I hope everyone checks out the podcast. Bye.